Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class and the learning for this week is dedicated by the Daniel S. Loeb Torah Center Diamond donors, Morris S. and Esther Levy, in loving memory of Stephen and Renee Levy, alayhim shalom. Also dedicated in loving memory of Nishmat Yosef ben Marhaba, alayhim shalom, for his Azkara, sponsored by his brother, Abraham Galapo. For the Refuah Shema B'Eliyahu Shmuel Mazaf Otuneh and Chana Bat Tzemefega, dedicated by Yehuda and Yehudit Yovitz, in loving memory of Nishmat, their beloved son Mordechai ben Yehuda Haim, alayhim shalom. Also dedicated the entire year of Breakfast in the Class, dedicated loving memory of Nishmat Ruth Bat Adela Orfali, alayhim shalom, sponsored by her family. Of course, the week of Kobu is sponsored by David Yash in honor of you and your substantial capacity to go today and every day. Okay, let us begin, my friends. We have a beautiful pasuk. The pasuk tells us, Shofetim v'shotrim tiyeh lecha b'chol sha'arecha. You have to have judges and you have to have policemen in all of your gates. But what's interesting is the pasuk also tells us a little bit later about, please only answer amen if you're listening to this live. Baruch atah Adonai, Elohim melech haolam she'akol nהיה baro. The pasuk tells us a little bit later about one of the integral parts of the justice system. So who's missing in court? We have a judge, we have the bailiff or the policeman. Who's missing? The witnesses. Says the pasuk about the witnesses. When they come forward and they testify that something happened, Yad ha'edim tiyebo barishona. The witnesses themselves need to be the ones that carry out the punishment in the beginning. So if, as an example, Bar Minan, the guy is getting skila, who's the ones that have to push him? The witnesses that saw the crime. So a lot of people maybe misunderstand what the idea here is. What's the pasuk trying to tell you? What's the concept?
Not to judge too hard.
Well,
To be true what you say.
okay, but the witnesses are now, why are they involved in the punishment? Why does that help? Why does that change anything? So listen to what Rav Moshe Sternbach explains. He says something unbelievable. He says that one of the things that human beings never realize is the impact of impact. What does that mean? Something happens to a person in their childhood, they're lost in a mall or in a baseball game, they're looking around, they can't find their parents, they're very, very afraid, and eventually an hour later, they figure out how to reunite the parents with the child. Most people think, okay, that's done. But what psychologists will tell us is, you can have scenarios where a child feels so abandoned, so lost by that moment, by that experience, that later on they have what's called abandonment issues. Okay? If you're trying to understand this, you might want to check in with Simcha. Maybe Simcha can help you for all your mental health needs. Be'ezrat Hashem. Right? If you're suffering with anything. We have a beautiful organization in the community that helps with that. But imagine a person now you think, okay, what does abandonment issues mean? Because I got lost once, because I felt very scared once, because no one stood up for me once, now I have this. So what does that mean? It means that if I ever get lost again, I'm going to be scared. That's the simplest way of understanding it. On a deep level, when someone feels abandonment in their life, what does it mean? It means that they don't feel safe. They don't feel that someone has got their back. They can develop in many ways a twisted sense of connection and a need for connection which is very close. And the minute the person is pulling away from them, in the mindset and the psyche of a person who's suffering from trauma surrounding abandonment, what happens? The minute the person has any life of their own, they develop a relationship with someone. Now they have a partner, they're going out with someone, or they have a spouse, and the spouse goes out with their friends. All of a sudden, they're at home by themselves. What does the person translate that as? They feel, again, abandoned. Now, are you abandoned? No, you're an adult. He's an adult, she's an adult. They left, they went out with their friends. So what? So they're by their mom's house. So what? So they're at work. So what? They're on a business trip. So what? They're at college, wherever they might be, in your specific scenario. But in the mindset of a person who suffered who experiences this abandonment, they can feel sometimes that the lack of closeness is indicative of a much bigger problem than it actually is. Now, if we witness this in the psyche of people who live regular, normal, healthy lives, then we should understand that this is also true in our relationship with Borei Olam, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu as well. Now, again, I want to explain this. A person who lived their life always having God, feeling that they were connected with God, feeling they were close with God, then when a difficult time comes, they can know, they can ride it out, they can maintain their emunah. Why? Because they're not suffering from abandonment issues. But a person who felt that God was never with me, or didn't know God in their early life, a lot of times when they feel like Hashem is not around, that's enough to be able to break the back of that person's emunah. So why am I sharing this? This concept the Torah is addressing over here. We often don't recognize the impact of impact. Let me explain. In Hallel we say a very interesting sentence. David HaMelech says, Ani avdecha ben amatecha. I'm your servant, the son of your maidservant. Why is David HaMelech giving his lineage, if his lineage is not, I'm a king, son of a king, right? Who wants to say that? I'm a servant. I'm a slave, the son of a maidservant. The answer is, my friends, that a slave who was born a free man approaches his servitude in a radically different way. He resents being a slave. Why? Because once he had freedom. But a eved, avdecha, ben amatecha, the son of a maidservant, he was born into being an eved Hashem. David HaMelech says to God, Hashem, I'm not a servant that resents or rejects your service. I grew up with your service. All I know is your service. All I want is your service. So my friends, what we're learning over here is that the life of an Eved who's the son of an Eved is different than the life of an Eved who's not the son of an Eved. Impact matters. Says Rav Moshe Sternbach, you have a person who witnesses a terrible crime. They come to Beit Din and they bear witness that this terrible crime happened. Yes? My friends, says Rav Moshe Sternbach, but the impact of seeing that crime has already made its impact, has laid its fingerprints all over you. You witness crime, even if you disagree with it. By definition, what happens? You become a little bit less shocked, appalled, upset by it. I'll give you an example. My father always tells me that when he came to Israel, was the first time in his life, unfortunately, that he saw Chilul Shabbat. That he saw Chilul Shabbat. In Halab, he never even saw it. Not once did he see a Jewish person breaking Shabbat. Not once. He was so astounded when he came to Israel, and they sent him to this irreligious kibbutz, and this guy is doing, he said, how are you doing that? The guy turned on the light, he was sure that there was some sort of trick that meant that it was not Chilul Shabbat, like, where's the thing, where's the string, is there a string? In Halab, he told me they had a whole string system that would turn on the lights after it ran out of string, He never saw it before. You know what happens? You see Chilul Shabbat one time, you go crazy. You see it 20 times, 100 times, that's how it is. You see it 1,000 times, what do you say? What am I going to do? That's the world we live in. That's what it's like. Cry me a river. The nature of seeing something on a certain level also, it creates the impact, but it leaves a fingerprint. So therefore, if a witness saw the crime, he comes to Beit Din, he bears witness, says the Pasuk, Yada Edim Tiyebo Barishona. They need to be a part of the punishment. They need to fix the impact that thing had on them. My friends, if this is true, how careful do we need to be? when it comes to what we expose our children to? What are we getting them to think, this is regular? And what can we protect them from? And I'll tell you something. People think to themselves, or they say to themselves, I can never, look, I'm not going to be able to shield my kid. This is the world. What am I going to do? Hide him in a box his whole life? That's not logical. Let me give you an example. If you go to any, to any a bookstore, a movie, a place where they don't rent movies anymore, but they used to be in a bookstore. What age is this book suitable for? Where did that come from? Imagine saying, I'm going to expose a 5-year-old to pornography. Why? Because eventually he's going to see. Eventually he's going to understand. Can't shield him forever. No, it's ridiculous. Why? Because what a child sees in their formative years is incredibly important. And it makes massive levels of impact. So even if the world is going to let him down one day, let him down when he's already built his inner world or her inner world where they understand what's appropriate, what's not, what's healthy, what's not, what's correct, what's not. But if a person as a child or if a person as an adult has been exposed to something that they don't want to see, that they don't want to have in their life, what we're learning from this pasuk, Yada Edem Tiyebo Barishona, is that there needs to be a physical action that uproots it. Now, I just want to explain what this idea means, because it's a very powerful one. In Judaism, we read a lot about the three different layers of mitzvot. One is machshava, thoughts. Right? Did you know that thoughts are part of mitzvot? Did you know that? Feelings are part of mitzvot. People are like, really? Hashem tells you what to think? Hashem tells you what to feel? Absolutely. You know how many mitzvot revolve around thoughts and feelings? You shall not be jealous. Lo tahmud, one of the Sefer Debrot. That's a feeling. Don't feel jealous. Ve'ahavta re'acha kamocha. Love your friend like yourself. You go into war, al tira ve'al techad. Don't be afraid. So the Torah is mandating, it's telling you, you can't feel this. The Torah also tells you, on some mitzvot, not to think certain things. Right? Don't think this. Don't say that in your head. Al yira bilvavecha betitecha lo. Don't think to yourself, kareva shenata sheva. I'm not going to lend this poor guy money, because soon it's going to be Shemitah. And if I lend him the money, then Shemitah comes along. Shemitah is going to undo my loan, Shmitat Ksafim. Yeah, my friends, the Torah is regulating thoughts and emotions. So one level is machshava. What's above the level of machshava? Dibur, speech. The Torah says you can't say lashon hara. You can't curse your parents. You can't curse Hakadosh Baruch Hu. There's certain things a person's not allowed. You can't speak on Shabbat, dibur bachol. You can't spread rumors about the woman that you married, that she was previously had an intimate relationship. That's motzi shemra. So there's literally commandments revolving around the mouth, how you say, what you say. Saying Shema in the morning and evening, deoraita. Birkat Hamazon, words, deoraita from the Torah. So there's thoughts, and then there's words, and then there's actions. Now, each one of those is a more and more physical experience of Torah. So first, thoughts, they're ethereal, they float in the air, they're more spiritual, right? Then you have words, which are part and part, because part of them live in the world of ideas, of thoughts, spiritual, in the world of spirit, and part of it is actually in the physical world, the akimat svatayim, the way the Gemara says it. You're actually forming words with your mouth. But then there's the world of action, which lives in this world, and only in this world. Okay? It's a physical thing you do with your physical goof. My friends, you know what we're learning over here? The witnesses, how was it made? It was made by them seeing something. Where does that sin live? In their thoughts. They come to Beit Din, and what do? They testify, dibur. They speak about what they saw. And then, Yad Ha'edim, Tayeba Barishona, they need to participate in the punishment that the Beit Din is going to mete out. What are we seeing over here? We're seeing that when something happens, or when there's a damage or an impact in a person's mind, it's not enough to think to yourself, you know something? I'm going to outdo or undo that thought. Like, let's say you think badly about a person. Is it enough to just say, I shouldn't think that way? No, he's a good guy. Is that enough? No. Why? Because in the world of machshava, you didn't fix the problem. You know what it's like? The famous example they give in teshuvah. You take a piece of paper and you fold the edge of the piece of paper. You fold it, it's folded like this. Your action went one way. You want to be able to fix that piece of paper. You can't just put it back, it's still tilted to the side. The only way to fix it is to bend it all the way to the other side and then straighten it, and then you have a straight piece of paper. Okay? If a person had an impact of machshava, it's not enough to just think in the other way. The person needs to go to the furthest opposite degree. So let's say, as an example, we know, everybody knows about Rambam's Shvil HaZahav, the golden path, the middle of the road where a person's supposed to be. Not too much of this, not too little of this. But when it comes to tikkun amidot, when it comes to teshuvah, a person needs to recognize that when I impact myself, when I said something, or I saw something, or I did something, the rectification of that object needs to go much further than just undoing said thing. Much more than just not having that sin be present anymore. I need to operate in the exact opposite extreme. And once I do that, then I can regulate back to the middle and be healed, so to speak, from that impact. My friends, I want to just, if I can, try and explain what this means in the real world. I had a fellow, I'm very proud of him, he came to me to tell me this week, you know, Rabbi, I just started saying berachot before I eat. He said, unbelievable. He said, I never used to do that. I'm hungry, you grab a sambusak, a kibbeh, you stick it in your mouth. Oh, delicious. Now, he says, I have to pause when I'm hungry. Right when I want to eat, I have to pause and I have to make a beracha. So the guy had never made berachot up until now. So what do you do when you have years and years and years of eating from something that belongs to Hashem, that you didn't thank Him for, that you didn't make a beracha about? So could you just make more berachot? You know something, every time I have a kibbeh, I'll make 5 berachot. I'll catch up. Doesn't work that way. One of them is mitzvah, the other 4 avera. You're not allowed to make a beracha that's not necessary or that's extra. So how does he solve that problem? And the answer, my friends, is by going to the nth degree. I didn't make a beracha. Now, to make a beracha doesn't fix that hole. It just throws some dirt at the bottom. How do I fill the hole? I make my berachot slowly. I make my berachot clearly. I make my berachot with intention, with kavanah, with purpose, with a feeling. So as an example, I know I'm guilty of this. Anyone else here in this class or listening to this feel like, you know something, my berachot are a little too hasty? You know, if you ever catch yourself, what is that? What is that? What is that? Are you eating M&Ms? M&M? Is that what that is? What does buch mean? I know it means it's a shorthand slang for Bukharim, but right? Buch. Is that what you're saying? Buch M&M? So if anybody here, you ever made berachot that you don't feel proud of, so learn to do something a little bit different. Think to yourself, there's a cup of coffee. Before I'm going to have the coffee, it smells delicious. Oh, you know how good it's going to feel when I drink this coffee. You know how awake I'm going to be. I'm going to get that taste in my mouth, the bittersweet. Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Hashem, for giving me this coffee. Baruch atah Adonai. Thank Him before you thank Him. And then make the beracha from a place of awareness. One beracha like that, my friends, fixes 1,000 berachot that was said too quickly, or maybe even not at all. So it's the job of a person to recognize that to fix means to go all the way to the other extreme. You witness something, you watch something, not only do you need to, back in the day, we have some people, I notice a little bit too young over here. There used to be something called tapes. You know what tape is? It's not something you put on that's sticky. Tape is something,
like a DVD.
it's like a DVD, except it's nothing like a DVD. Inside the tape looks like 2 CDs maybe, because there's these 2 circles. And it has at the bottom a piece of tape, that's what they called it, tape, okay, film, and it would basically be 2 rolls, and the machine would roll the thing, and the reader is reading the tape as it's rolling. Of course, until it rips, and then you have to splice it with tape, and you get your glasses out, and you cut it, and you put it, and you do the thing, and you use the pencil, right? My friends, it was another world back in the day. There's no reason anymore for them to make pencils now that are octagon shaped. Back in our day, there was a reason, okay? Now, my friends, if you have a tape, and the tape has something very embarrassing on it, like you singing karaoke when you were 11, and you don't want anyone to get a hold of this tape, especially in times of social media. You're very nervous that someone should find this VHS video of you doing a dance, thinking you were so cool. There was only one solution, and that was to record over the tape. And you could record nothing. But if you recorded nothing, then it was gone. A human being, though, is not a piece of tape. So you just recording over something, it doesn't work. The impact runs so deep. So I tell people like this: if seeing something negative makes an impression on a person, if witnessing an avera makes an impression on a person, changes them to the point where the witness, I didn't even do anything wrong, I just saw a crime, I have to purge that from myself, then my friends, how much more so does witnessing a mitzvah make a positive impact? Could you imagine if instead of inappropriate videos, we had super appropriate videos? Imagine they shot videos of people doing mitzvot. And you just watched a guy shake a lulav. You watched this guy sit in a sukkah, someone pray. I remember there was this one guy. I went to a minyan in Muncie. And there was this one guy who was praying like his life depended on it. Anyone who's ever been to pray in Vizhnitz in Muncie will know what I'm talking about. He was a short guy with a very long beard, and he would pray, and it took him like 5 minyanim to finish shacharit. Because he would pray, and then the minyan would finish, but he was still like in the beginning, so he would go to the next minyan, and they would be in front of them, and then they would catch up, and then the guy was in 5 minyanim, and he'd be like this, anyway, the first time I went, I did not pray for 1 hour. I just watched this guy. I was just like, wow, what is this? First I thought he was crazy. I thought the guy was actually Looney Tunes. Okay? But I just turned around to a friend of mine. I was like, is this for real? Is this legit? And the guy says, yeah, he's here every day. This is how he prays in the morning. This is how he prays mincha. This is how he prays arbit. You could see the guy's crying, and he's talking to Hashem like Hashem is his father. I'll tell you, I just sat there with my tefillin on, my talit, for 1 hour. I prayed not at all. Just sitting there watching this guy. And I was thinking to myself, you know something? How many bad tefillot did that vision erase? How much expectation did that create in me of what a real prayer is supposed to look like? So my friends, witnessing, and that's I think what the pasuk means when it says, "You enecha ro'ot et morecha." Your eyes should see the ones that you are in awe of. It's a mitzvah to go see a tzaddik. So people go to Israel, I tell them, where did you go? They're like, Ranana. Wow, very nice. Where else did you go? Tel Aviv. Oh, did you go to Yerushalayim? You went to the Kota? Nah, I didn't have time this trip. What? You didn't have time this trip? What was the trip? You went to Eretz Israel. You used on a beach in Tel Aviv. There's beaches here. Right? to go to the Kotel, to see thousands of people praying, every one of those images creates an impact in your mind. You saw thousands of tefillot. So my friends, that's when we need to open up our eyes. We need to witness tzaddikim. We need to find people who pray beautifully and watch them pray and drive that into our consciousness. We need to make sure that our children are seeing the most positive and the most beautiful things. And when something happens which makes an impact on us, we should go out of our way to unearth and to reverse that trend and to plant the exact opposite in Kiddusha, in that thing which is not holy. Baruch Hanei Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Right after Kaddish, we're going to have